The story begins in 1984 with a man named Swango who was about 30 years old and working as a resident at the Ohio State Medical University Center. Behind the appearance of a young medical professional, Swango is secretly obsessed with killing people. During this time, he begins murdering his own patients. He sneaks into their hospital rooms and injects them with substances that cause them to die very quickly. Over time, a troubling pattern forms as many of the patients under his care suddenly die. Nurses at the hospital begin to notice that an unusually large percentage of Swango's patients are dropping dead, and they grow suspicious that he might be responsible. Complaints are reported, but the hospital cannot prove anything, so no immediate action is taken. Swango continues his crimes and soon targets his own coworkers. He buys a bucket of takeout chicken, secretly mixes arsenic into it, and brings it to work. After his coworkers eat the food, they quickly begin vomiting and suffering severe diarrhea. This is not the first time he has been suspected of poisoning people, so many coworkers believe Swango is responsible, even though they still cannot prove it. Eventually, they formally complain to the hospital. When his internship ends, the hospital decides not to allow him to stay on as a resident, quietly forcing him out. However, instead of banning him from medicine, the hospital gives him a positive recommendation. This allows Swango to obtain his medical license and find work elsewhere. Later in 1984, he gets a job as a paramedic at a county ambulance service in Illinois, where he resumes poisoning people. One day, he brings donuts to work that are laced with ant killer spray containing arsenic. His coworkers eat them and soon become violently ill. Later that evening, Swango even calls one of them to ask how bad the pain was and whether they thought they might die. This disturbing behavior increases suspicions. His coworkers decide to test him. One day, they leave a pitcher of iced tea in the workplace to see if he will tamper with it. When Swango believes no one is watching, he pulls ant killer from his bag and pours it into the tea. The coworkers later test the tea, and it comes back positive for arsenic. They search his belongings and find ant killer in his bag before reporting everything to the police. Police obtain a search warrant for Swango's home and discover what appears to be a poison laboratory. Investigators find arsenic, ricin, botulism, pesticides, and other toxic substances. Swango is arrested. He accepts a plea deal and receives 5 years in prison for poisoning his coworkers, and his medical licenses in Illinois and Ohio are revoked. While in prison, his story becomes widely known in the news, and he is even interviewed on the well-known television program 2020. After his release, Swango attempts to return to medicine. In 1992, he applies for residency at the University of South Dakota's medical school. To hide his criminal past, he forges documents claiming his prison sentence lasted only 6 months and resulted from a bar fight. The hospital fails to investigate further and hires him. Soon after, patients around him begin dying again. Staff members grow suspicious of the strange pattern and start examining his background more closely. Although they cannot prove he is killing patients, they discover he lied about the reason for his imprisonment, and he is fired. By 1993, Swango moves to New York and applies for a psychiatry residency at the State University of New York. Once again, he forges documents to hide his criminal record and previous dismissals. The hospital does not perform a thorough background check and accepts him. He is later transferred to a VA hospital in Northport, New York, where he continues killing patients. At the VA hospital, Swango injects 3 elderly patients with poison and they die. When coworkers attempt to save them, Swango falsely claims that the patients' families had signed do not resuscitate orders, forcing staff to stand by while the patients die. Suspicions soon grow again. Around the same time, the old 2020 interview from his prison years is re-aired on television. People recognize him and realize who he really is. Swango is quickly fired, and a hospital staff member finally reports him to the police. Now a wanted man, he flees the United States. Swango travels to Zimbabwe, where he hides his past and secures a job at another hospital in 1994. Once again, patients begin dying around him. By 1995, hospital staff grow suspicious and suspend him while they investigate. Swango escapes again and eventually resurfaces in 1997 in Saudi Arabia, where he uses a fake resume to obtain yet another hospital job. It appears he may continue moving from country to country, poisoning people without being caught. However, before fully starting work in Saudi Arabia, he must return to the United States to obtain the proper visa. Believing authorities may have forgotten about him after several years, Swango flies back to the United States. But federal investigators have actually been tracking him ever since the murders in Northport. The moment he arrives at the airport, he is arrested. Swango is eventually convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Investigators believe he may have killed around 60 people, making him one of the most dangerous medical killers in history.